So, yeah, since the last Nerd Night, we got an extraordinary crowd out, and we got a lot of reactions, and we love feedback. We just love it. We can't get enough of it. I mean, every line you drop us, we will do exactly as you say, no matter what you say. So let me just read out a couple of emails from people. Dear Nerd Night organizers, what are you thinking? I mean, seriously, you guys are out of your minds. This whole concept is a contradiction in itself. Nerds don't socialize, they don't go out, and they certainly don't speak in public. They stay at home doing nerdy things like playing WOW, microwaving chicken. Okay, the person that laughed obviously knows what's going on. Or compiling source code. Anybody attending the Nerd Night is demonstrating that he is clearly anything but a nerd. More like a nerd wannabe, who only wants to live by this paradigm in order to create an identity to compensate for his lack of personality. Anybody who attends the Nerd Night is therefore a big phony. Signed, Steve Urkel. So, well, not all these reactions were negative. Dear nerds, keep up the good work. Unfortunately, I can't make it tonight, as I'm helping my mother baking cookies. Hopefully, later tonight, I can attend to my stuffed hamster collection, so I can show you guys the full works next time. Yours, Mark Rutte, Prime Minister of the Netherlands. So, well, I don't fully agree with the first sender of the email, because there are occasions, and this is one of them, where nerds do interact. And I don't mean through the web. I mean in person. And these occasions, most of these occasions, are the playing of games. Be it board games, card games, fantasy games, role-playing games, all with the sole purpose of escaping that horrible reality. So here to tell us more about this is expert, adept, and game enthusiast Esther Wertwijn. Give her a big hand, please.
I'm more of an ex-adept, not an expert adept. Oh, I still play. Okay, weekend heroes. Weekend heroes are people indeed who spend their spare time playing role-playing games, having fun, imagining themselves to be heroes, often. They're not always. So I'm not going to talk about the heroics of these games, but I'm going to talk about the games themselves and about role-playing. And also I try to explain what makes it fun to do, at least what I think what makes it fun, because there of course are different opinions about it. So, how does role-playing come about? And where lies the focus of each of the games I'm going to talk about tonight? And thirdly, how is immersion brought about? I think immersion is key in role-playing. The player needs to be immersed to have a fluent style, if you want, and to bring his experience to the fullest. Without that experience, you cannot enjoy your role-playing, and therefore you will suck. This is a nice picture of a 17th century role-playing game I loved to attend. I missed 2 years. Unfortunately, I think of going this year again. As you can see, they're really immersed. Without the immersion, you really cannot enjoy role-playing. Role-playing is about the experience of the player, not about the actions you do. In role-playing, you think about improvising a lot, playing a game, and these are actually also the two aspects I want to compare it with. Because yes, role-playing is similar to improvisation and a game, but there are many differences. If you compare it to theatrical improvisation, you have 2 points that fit. The first is that you start from a basic concept about your persona or about the person you're about to play. So there are certain ideas about this person, there's a goal, and maybe he or she has been through a difficult time and you have to bring that out in the play. These are things you have to think about before you start. But similarly, role-playing, you start from a character, you think about how strong this person is, how emotional, or all things like that, what he carries, or what his skills are. And also the fact that action leads to a reaction, and again to an action is a point that is comparable. Only in theatrical improvisation at this point is mostly focused on bringing the scene towards a certain point, or collapsing the scene that one of the players has a overhand over the other, and so forth. It's that play that in improvisation is most of the time the goal. And in role-playing, you have a much longer time span. So one of the goals is also about being as normal as possible in your character. And that is something on which these two acts differ. So, why is it not similar? The details of the character is much more elaborate in role-playing games. Also, the focus lies on the experience of the player himself and not on presenting a theater scene or to provide entertainment. The entertainment is focused on your own experience. And thirdly, a role-playing game is a rule-governed game. But role-playing games are not fully similar to normal games as a board game. Hier is die board game, mensen erg niet. I don't know the word in English. We have a board game where, as we have rules, rules normally lead to a goal. A board game is competitive. When the goal is reached, there's a winner and the game ends. You could say that board games are often linear. Of course, there are many different kinds of games, and I'm not going to talk about game concepts or interrelations, or Wittgenstein said something about it. I'm not going to. But role-playing games are a game, but not like this. First of all, the rules are supportive. They are supportive in the sense that they give you a basis on which you perform your actions, and also a basis on which you view the world and your character. It's not so that if you follow the rules in a role-playing game, you play the game. You do not play the game where you just follow the rules. There's more to be added, and that's not the fact in a board game. The focus lies on social interaction. Role-playing is something you do with other people. You cannot... Yeah, well, you can sit down and be a character on your own, but there's not much fun in that. The world in which you play is often persistent, so if you die, if your character dies, that happens, then the others still go on. That is also something you have to deal with. So, in that sense, it's non-linear. Of course, there are quests or all kinds of assignments you can do. You can say that's linear, they lead to an evolvement of the character, or if you things you can get, but okay. That's minor. Okay, now we come to the part that I'm going to explain the different role-playing games, but now I see on my screen here that I forgot something very important, and that's this. Role-playing games come with a game master, something you can't level out. That's just a necessity. Game masters are people who are not players, but they are attached to the game. They govern the game by being a referee. They often improvise, they invent the world in which you play, and so on and so on. I will talk more about it later on. Here we have the three main role-playing games. Of course, there are also card games like Magic, but that's not a role-playing game, that's a strategic game. You just lay down cards, you don't play a card part. So we have tabletop, classic, pen and paper, live roleplay, and multi-massive online role-playing games. I don't know who came up with that word, but yeah. Pen and paper. The word says it all. You played while sitting at a tabletop pen and paper. It started in 1947 when Dungeons and Dragons was invented, and now we have over, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of systems. You talk about a game system because you have a set of books, and they are the rules and all the possibilities, and from that you go further. So a game system. Here's a little illustration how it looks like. You see people here having pen and paper, sitting at a table, doing a role-playing game. The paper they're writing on, those are the character sheets. So as the game evolves, you experience things as a character, and they will inevitably change what you can do and also how you view yourself. All these things, you keep a note of this on those sheets. These people are apparently somewhere inside, because when you're inside you take out the lined paper like that, and then that's the dungeon or the... that's more you don't have to know. Here's some examples of games. Systems. And here we have the character sheet. This is the core. This is a character sheet. They look different, but this is one I found. I couldn't download my own. It was too much of a hassle. So, here we see up there ability scores. That's how it works. You throw dice, you have a certain calculus, and according to that you divide your points. Here are the skills you can do, like climbing, swimming, you name it. And according to that set, that's a basic set, you can modify these skills. Then whenever you come across a situation, you need to use a skill, like swimming, you're drowning, and they say, well, can you swim? Yeah, I can swim. Okay, throw your dice for swimming. You throw a dice, which is a chance modifier, in a way, and then you add up what you have there, and then you will succeed or not. That's a part of the role-playing. There's another part of the role-playing in pen and paper, is that you do not only describe what you're doing, you're also saying what you're doing. When you go to a bar in a game, you say, okay, I'm going to a bar, and then at the bar you say, I would like a beer. But you're not at a bar, you're sitting at a table. But that's the whole point. That's cool. That can be more detailed and more layered, but this is, I think, the first step. So, the role of the game master now comes up, because a game master also sits down at this table. And in a tabletop game, the game master is responsible for the world. He often has invented this world. It's layered and detailed, and you can walk around in this world. And wherever you come, there are extras, like in a movie. Extras who have a certain personality. You can speak with them. The game master will speak for them, of course. And then you can interact. He's also a game leader. Whenever you have a problem with rules, or there's a conflict, something's not clear, he will decide what happens. It's a very important role. If the game master is not good, the whole game will fall down. He's keeping everything together. Tabletop gaming is actually a form of collaborative storytelling, because you all participate in one story, and your actions, your role-playing actions, add up to the experience of the story, or the line the story will take. It sounds a bit like a radio drama, indeed, it's describing and the utterances of the text. And immersion is brought about by the descriptive capacities of the game master and the players. If these are good and the people like each other, and you are in a good way interactive with each other, you find that a certain pace comes in, a certain quickness, and you don't have to look up the rules anymore, you can just go with the flow, and that is when things become interesting. Here's a set of books. This is actually, I think, the second edition, so it's really old. But it gives a nice idea about how many books there are involved. There are way more, actually. There is a book there of martial power, for instance, then you can focus your character on being a martial kung fu master, or all the stuff you need are in there. There are also books there for the DM to use, for the GM to use, and they're the backbone of the game, really. You don't need books in a live role-playing game, though. This is me. I'm a shipmate there in the same 17th century historical live role-playing game. trying to be a boy, a girl who is a boy. Actually, it was rather difficult, but it was fun. Roleplay is the opposite, actually, in this sense, from tabletop roleplaying, because you go all the way. Going all the way means going to an event, often a campsite or a somewhere where they have a lodging. It's always cold, and you dress up and you act out your character. It's as simple as that. So if we go back to the bar example, in this case, you don't say I'm going to a bar. Well, only if you say that to other players. But you go to the bar. That's good. And you order a drink, and then you, in a similar way, you can plan to murder someone the same night. It's great. Like the tabletop games, there are many different categories. You have mostly high fantasy, not as common as low fantasy or the others. Apparently, the fantasy aspect is attached to role-playing games. I think personally that it's a reason for people not to be creative and not to roleplay in a more realistic manner, because they think, look, I'm wearing elven ears, I'm roleplaying enough, so I don't need to make an effort. But that's my personal opinion. I don't know if I'm insulting anyone, but that's it. I also think that, therefore, qualitative events are rare. There are not many organizations who put in an effort to make props, for instance. What you see in the background is a rebuilt Dutch governmental house from the 18th century. And there was, in this game, there was a whole street like that. You could enter them, there were lights in them, there was glass in them. Some people of the organization were actually prop builders for commercials. So there you get some good, I say it, luring into immersion, because it really helps if everything looks the part. So, live role-playing games have a simple rule system, not as elaborate as tabletop role-playing games. Because you cannot, if you want to role-play and interact with people, look into your book every time and see if what you're doing is good or not. That doesn't help. Also, the role of the game master is greatly diminished. You have one part who makes the world, and the other part is in the game, also dressed up and acts as a referee. For example, when there's a large fight, you have to take over someone else's town, then that goes according to a certain rule system to be fair, because fighting occurs. Now my sentence doesn't work. When fighting occurs, people often forget themselves and they don't play fair. That's difficult. It needs to be guided. Yeah, it's not fun, it's just a point. Here we have the physical aspect, but I think that was clear already. And there are limits. Whereas in tabletop role-playing you can play a highly intelligent person who can do much more than you. Here you cannot let your character outsmart you. You cannot say, I'm smarter than, my character is smarter than me, so she knows what she has to do, but I don't. It's like roleplay, you have to act it out. If you cannot do it, people don't believe you. In real life the same. If you cannot be a professor because you don't know anything, you cannot claim you are. So you have to know what you're doing. That's maybe not the best example, but you know what I mean. Here's some pictures. This was in England, the top one, the Dumnoni. They actually made a whole village of old English houses. It was the best event in that sense that I've ever seen. A nice fight. There are two friends of mine, I don't know what they're doing. Looks fun though. Here we are in the same group, I think a year later. This is me. Somebody just died, so we were grabbing our weapons, and I think our leader had a talk to us. And here again you see the house again of the props. I really wanted to show you that because that is just so nice work. The visual aspect in live role-playing games is very important, and the same in the morphs. This is the thing that, in my opinion, makes people love it. This is WOW, as Lucas so nicely told us, World of Warcraft, which I have to admit I've played for a couple of years. Yeah, you can see what it looks like. It is a huge world. For a game world, it is immensely huge. There are countries in this world, where you have a certain ride, you have like a bike, but in this case they use animals. If you want to go from one side to the other side of the country, it takes you literally 15 minutes. And that is just ridiculous if you think there are more than 30 countries in each part of the world. That's a lot. So the real-time aspect also plays a role in this. But the visuals, the detailedness of the work of this world immediately draws you in. In comparison, it is the least social though of the role-playing games because you only converse and interact with others by chat. Indeed, in the end you sit behind your computer on your own. While you think you are part of a community. Because what you see is other people, well not on this screen, all the time running around and reading the text. It gives an illusion indeed of being surrounded by others. But you're not. When you turn off your computer, it's strangely lonely. But, as I said, this point that you are on your own behind your computer is the key ingredient for being thoroughly immersed into the game. Because you are, on the other side, not disturbed by the presence of other players. The reason that you have on role-playing servers, you act or you role-play on chat, you have normally a chat part here, is if you do it over a headphone, you will immediately be confronted with how do I say it, dichotomy. Namely, you have a picture and a vision of the character you interact with, and then, in this case, this girl, you hear a male's voice. That doesn't help. That doesn't work. So, preferably, you need a chat screen. Indeed. Immersion, graphics, and the avatar aspect of it. It's highly giving it. These games have a low threshold. Even if you're not in the mood of roleplay, you can still play the game. You don't have to organize a whole event and gather people to do roleplay or to play a game. You can just log on and you're there. I think for many people this is the reason. There are more than 12 million players in the world that play this game. For many people this is the reason that they do it. They're not all role-playing games, or role-playing servers though. That's also a point. I've said this already. The rules test system is the game itself. You don't have to learn anything, therefore to be immersed is also quicker. You have a quicker step to it. Because you can just be yourself and chat and pretend to be with it your character. That is, yeah. And the role of the game master is only solving tech issues and in-game issues. Sometimes you get stuck, they have to get you out. I have seen there are fora on the internet where you can read about what people send to game masters, and it varies from asking for riddles, asking for songs, also people who ask them to do their math homework. But they actually get an answer, and I thought that was a good point. So I had a lot of fun screening through this because you don't really know what you see. So here's some images of the world. It's a bit dark, fortunately. So yeah. Alright, the last part. Immersion. I have talked about it a lot. It's a matter of taste indeed. Some people play tabletop role-playing games and like to calculate every chance they get on an action and do this with highly difficult math I don't know what they do. Other people only want to talk about what's in the books and forget this role-playing game. So I made a little chart, or a tabel, as I say, and here you can see the pros and the cons and the types of role-playing that's involved with each form. And indeed, in a morph, you have no influence on the world. As you can see, you do have it with tabletop. The individual influence on the world is great. The GM will respond to what you do in a tabletop game. It won't respond to what you do in a role-playing game, or in a morph. So in these games, role-playing is mostly conceptual, whereas in the tabletop games, you are actually cooperating and letting the world grow with your actions, which is great. Is it? Yeah. Like role-play is similar. You do have an influence, but you're much more a part of a group experience, much more than with the other two. So with each form there is a pro and a con, and most people I know, they hover between all three forms because they can still make out what they prefer best. I right now like to play tabletop games and online games much more because I just don't have the time anymore to do it all the time. I want to do other things. It's also expensive. Doing role-playing games is expensive. Do not underestimate that. Immersion, therefore. Immersion is fluent role-playing. You reflect on your character while you are role-playing because you have to think, what would she do in this circumstance? I wouldn't do this, but I've made my character so that she would do this. For instance, in the live role-playing game, I had my character, told myself that my character would do a lot for money. Not in that sense, but in this, she got the assignments to actually murder someone. But this was in the evening. It was really scary to do this, and I realized that I took the assignment because there was a ruby involved, and But I realized I wasn't able to ask too much of a coward, so I had to talk someone into doing it while giving me the ruby. It worked. But it learned a lot about myself. I think that's, hey, this is not supposed to be there. This one I need. So, whilst role-playing and being immersed and playing your character in such a way that you notice the difference between being the character and being yourself at the same time, in relation to the situation you're in, that is what it's all about in role-playing. Don't let anyone say it's otherwise. If they can't do this, then they're not into role-playing. And my end conclusion is indeed the development of your character, therefore is the development of the player himself. You can learn a lot about yourself while doing this.
Thank you, Esther. That was very, very informative. I didn't know anything about it, and I think I speak for a lot of people in this room. So, I think there are also a few people that really know what you're talking about. But one question that came up with me when I saw the word, I can imagine what an apocalyptic game is, but what is a steampunk game?
Steampunk is more a mix. I've never played it, but I think more a mix between fantasy and apocalyptic, so stuff with machines and rusty goggles. Or Jules Verne. Jules Verne is more steampunk, and apocalyptic is really more depressive.
Thanks. So, are there any other questions? We have two tabletop or two handheld mics going around, so they'll find you.
Am I loud? To me, the live action role-playing seems the most fascinating of all. But I wonder, with all these guys smashing each other's heads in with wooden swords, how many real-life accidents happen?
They're not wooden swords. There are strict regulations on how to treat a weapon. It's mostly PVC bags, I don't know, plastic insulation tube. There has to be a core in it that is made of wood. Around it you have a certain small styrofoam thing, and on that you have another type of foam, and then you paint latex over it. And it has to be, latex, And you paint that again with paint to make it look real, and then you, when you test the weapon, you're not supposed to feel any heartbeats, so there are strict regulations. And head is not a location.
The next question, there was somebody here, maybe somebody can go there with the mic, but maybe in the meantime?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm interested, can you philosophically justify playing role-playing games?
Justify?
Justifying playing role-playing games.
Can you justify your question?
Well, yeah, of course I can. Of course I can. I played role-playing games when I still lived at home, so my mother was always saying, can't you be doing something useful? I'm not sure, but maybe some other people recognize this. So maybe learning an instrument, doing your homework, or developing socially in a different, like a real life context. Maybe, I'm not sure. But is there some type of justification possible?
Yeah, you can always say it's much better sitting in front of the television. You're creative, you're outside, what else do you want? With friends and have fun.
Yeah. So it's purely hedonistic, like having fun.
You want to have a discussion about hedonism?
I thought maybe you could say something about while role-playing game you develop your character, and in real life in some instances you also are better capable of dealing with
some friends of mine say that, but I don't say it. For me, it's just entertainment. That's up to you. I mean, it's as I said, there's so many different forms of role-playing, even live role-playing games. The events are so difficult to find a good event. I mean, all the players that go to what I think are crap events, they also apparently have a good time there. So I can't justify what they are doing there.
And I also know a lot of people who go to crap events. Next question.
About the previous question, I was actually able to get 3 study points once for playing Dungeons and Dragons, but... no, what I was wondering, I've been playing D&D for 15 years by now, and although I'm a geek at playing Dungeons and Dragons, but I always found live action role playing like too geeky.
Depends again on where you go, but I can imagine where you get that from.
Well, what I always wondered was like, even with tabletop games, in the middle of the action, with all the strict rules and with the dice, you can get like in a fight with the dice almost. How in the hell does like fighting works in live action role play?
Yeah, that is indeed simplified a lot. Each organization has their own system. There's not one system in live role-playing games. Let me see if I can give an example. Yeah, each location is a point. So, sorry. This is good for you. So each location is a point. So if you have armor, you get certain stats which add on that. If your breastplate is probably +2 if it's metal or. And then the basics on which it goes, it's of course trust. So if you get hit 3 times by a blunt weapon, I don't know, you get only subdued, or there are all kinds of rules for that. You have to know it in front before you start, and for safety reasons, you have to know where to hit. So your fighting style needs to be adjusted to that. I cannot fight at all, so I just stay out. Yeah, or I try to betray people.
Thanks. Time for one last question. Is somebody really anxious? Let's not give him the microphone. There we go.
So you made a nice contrast between board games and role-playing games.
Again, please.
You made a nice contrast between board games and role-playing games.
I don't know. Oh.
Contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said that board games were linear.
Yeah.
And role-playing games are more about imagination.
In general.
In general.
Yeah.
So you immediately discarded card games because you don't really think on
Magic, you mean?
in magic.
Yeah.
Yes, magic. Anyway, do you really think that massively multiplayer online role-playing games are real role-playing games?
Only on a roleplay server.
Well, they're not really. There's no real role over there. You don't chat. You don't talk with anybody. You just chat.
You haven't been on a roleplay server.
Yes, I have.
You have.
It's
Okay.
extremely boring.
You have to be in a guild.
Yeah. Still.
Yeah.
I was there before a while, and before I was in Starbucks.
Yeah, but it all depends on the group because it's so roleplaying so minor. It depends on your group.
Yes, but anyways, like playing cards with magic.
Huh?
It's like playing cards
Yeah.
with magic. It's just You just throw this spell. It's like
Yeah, but you don't act out a role in Magic.
you don't do that in WoW either.
No, but if you're in a guild who is focused in roleplay, you will use the game content to make it part of your world. So you actually live out the world that's been given to you. I don't say it's a full role-playing game, but there is definitely a role-play element in it.
Well,
In the sense that I described it here.
yeah, it's extremely linear and it's like playing cards for me.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, enough material for discussion, I would say. Let's all have a drink and reconvene in about